Congress, we take an oath of office to support and defend the Constitution and the American people. Guided by the moral strength of John Lewis, our sit-in on the floor resonated around the world and focused on the attention of the American people on the radical and reckless obstruction to bipartisan, very popular gun safety bills. The Republicans turned off the microphones. We raised our voices. They turned off the cameras. We went to Periscope. They tried to shut down the discussion, and what resulted was a discussion heard round the world. All this trouble just because the Republicans refused to give us a vote on common sense gun violence legislation overwhelmingly supported by the American people. In the case of one bill, 85%, the other 90% of the American people. The Republican House should have the courage to keep guns out of the hands of criminals and suspected terrorists. No bill, no break. Well, they then, the dark of night, left the House with 2 more days of work to do and left it, for almost 2 weeks. It's unbelievable. Well, it's not unbelievable. But the point is this. Members have just become totally tired and frustrated of every time we have a heart-wrenching tragedy in our country from gun violence, the carnage that it produces, whether it's little children 6 years old in Newtown, whether it's these young people last week in Orlando, whether it's churchgoers in Charleston, across the country, you name it, it breaks your heart. As families suffer, they can never really be made whole. We hope to give them some hope that their grief, and so many of them who are grieving, have turned their grief into action in order to get some guns laws passed so that other families are spared. Every time it happens, we have a moment of silence that is indicative of the silence that will follow. How many more times do members expected to stand for a moment of silence, and we do so reverentially and a deep, prayerful way for the families? But that is not a substitute for the actions that are needed. Book of James, deeds, not words. And so you have seen with Orlando and the first anniversary of South Carolina, you saw June 17th, the anniversary, we have stepping into a new world in terms of this struggle. Ever-widening universe of advocates, ever-widening circle of different sectors of our demographics in our country. Veterans forming committees chaired by Mark Kelly and Gabby Giffords. Veterans, General McChrystal wrote the op-ed about the involvement of veterans in this fight. On any number of occasions during the night, I quoted some of these op-eds relating to the additional diversity engaged in the anti-gun violence fight and the involvement of our veterans. So public safety, public health, protecting the American people is all related. And what do the Republicans do? Instead of giving us a vote on guns, they passed a really pathetic Zika bill. It's been 4 months since President Obama submitted his emergency supplemental bill request for Zika. 4 months for emergency. Think of that. 4 months for an emergency funding. And House Republicans have dawdled, delayed, and obstructed, trying to shortchange our response to this virus that threatens to do devastating damage to America's families and children. You know, we've said it before, some of the children who might be affected by this may not be able to walk, talk, hear, or see. It costs about $10 million to sustain their lives for the short time that they will live, maybe 10 years old. This is malformations. It's something. It's sexually transmitted. It's very dangerous. we shouldn't be messing around with some kind of a bill that does nothing. And it's so bad that they brought a rule to the floor that said no debate on the bill. They knew there was just no case to be made for it, and they knew there was a strong case to be made against it. So here we have an appropriations bill, the military construction VA bill. They attach this to that. They bring it to the floor. It is required to have a recorded vote. There's stipulation as to, there are requirements as to how you handle an appropriations bill on the floor. They're usually all under an open rule so that you can amend. Now, this is a conference report, so that part is different, but I tremble at the thought of what they'll do next on regular stand-up bills. This conference report and no debate. So what opportunity was there? The debate on the rule. No debate on the rule. That is not only highly unusual, I've never seen that happen. The dead of night, without debate, Republicans forced through a radical and reckless bill more focused on attacking women's health in this bill than protecting America's families. It dangerously underfunds our fight against Zika, cuts off women's access to birth control, and undermines our veterans as well. Now, on this subject of the undermines our fight against, it's a false economy to say I'm not going to pay to prevent and contain Zika, because you're going to have to spend much more money dealing with the after effects, which are tragic in people's lives. So, Dr. Fauci said on this subject, if we don't get the money that the president has asked for, the $1.9 billion, that is going to have a very serious negative impact on our ability to get the job done. So that was disappointing. But again, I cannot conceal the satisfaction that Democrats have, and again, working with John Lewis, with the actions of Catherine Clark and David Cicilline, with the management of it all by John Larson all day and Steve Israel all night, with the Periscope to give us access to the outside world, or the access world give them access to us. Beto O'Rourke, let's see, Scott and Mark Takano. Yeah, Mark Takano. So our members were very resourceful, and that just turned us up to a tree that has fallen in the wilderness, but no one could hear. We'd just be talking to ourselves in the chamber to something that, I think whether it was 2.6 billion, what was the figure? 2.6 contacts one way or another. So technology has enabled us to communicate in the social media. All of this would not have been possible without the activism of the outside groups, whether it's every town, whether it's Moms Against. Of course, the Brady campaign, the really leader of all of us in this, Gabby Giffords group. The list goes on and on. In fact, I was on the phone with 100 of the groups on last Sunday in preparation for the communication and activism we needed. So with that, I'd be pleased to take